Hi, this is Sue for Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. So I was at Bowls this morning with a collection of older ladies. I'm one of the young ones at nearly 64. And one of the ladies was talking about somebody being elderly, this elderly woman that she knows. And I looked at her and grinned, and she goes, "Yes, I'm in my 80s, so I suppose I'm elderly as well." And I thought it was quite amusing that she identified this other person as being elderly, but not herself. And when I said, "Well, I'm just short of 64, a number of them there said, "Oh, you're just young, you're not elderly yet." And it's all relative, isn't it? It's all relative in how people view us and in how we view ourselves. So, yeah, it was just an interesting situation that I heard this lady talking about somebody else being elderly when she could even have been even older than she was. But thinking along those lines of when is old, when I worked as a social worker in the hospital, we mostly took in people under the age of 65 years, and there was funding for people under 65 that wasn't available for people over the age of 65. And we often said that it was quite, how would I describe it, discriminatory, which is a big word for this time of the day. It was quite discriminatory in that it relied on chronological age, not physical age. And by that, we used to get people, like I said, under 65, who could have been mid-50s, and they were an old 50-year-old. And they put them against somebody age 75, and the 75-year-old, if they were fit and active, could outdo the 55-year-old sometimes, depending on lifestyle choices and health and general ways they looked after themselves. And so, yeah, you can get an old 55-year-old or you can get a really young 75-year-old. So providing the supports and services for people based on their age is unfair. And I know because we referred a lot of people to rehabilitation options in the community, and there was only one or two of them available. And these in-house rehab facilities that kept people for longer, sometimes for months, you had to be under 65 to have access. And that seemed really unfair when, like I said, you could get somebody under 65 who, though they were under that age cap, did not have the potential to rehab because they weren't in a good place when they had their stroke or other event. Whereas a person at 75 who'd been riding bikes, who'd been kayaking, who'd been tramping, who'd been doing all these active things when they had their health event, had often more potential than those younger people, but they didn't have access to those services. So yeah, this morning I just consider that age is not a number. A number doesn't mean a thing. For those of us with Parkinson's, just as with the general population, if you are an old, whatever age you are, an old 60, an old 64, haven't looked after yourself, overweight, not very active, then your options for improving your lot with Parkinson's, of staying more able for longer, may be more limited than somebody older than you who's actually always kept themselves reasonably fit. So I know that I'm in that category of having a bit more weight than I'm happy with. And while I've been trying to be reasonably sensible in my eating, it's quite hard when you're not in control of the kitchen, when you're not able to really cook meals. And I don't want to put extra stress on my husband, who's been doing most of the everything for the last 2 to 3 years because of my various ailments. And the interesting thing is the reasons behind the various ailments that cause me not to be able to help out of the house and nothing to do with my Parkinson's. The first one was an arthritic knee that needed replacing, so that was one operation. And the most recent one, of course, has been my back operation, again down to arthritis and wear and tear. And we went to see my GP yesterday, and just for basically a catch-up to see how things are going. And he was really pleased that I'd knocked back on things like morphine, that I was managing my pain by changing position, by moving about, by going for walks, by, if the pain was really bad, reclining in the recliner till it settled, and then getting up and moving some more. So I wasn't using lots of heavy medication anymore, which I was really pleased with. But it was quite funny. He's a really good doctor and we get on really well. And he said something about wear and tear. And I said, I'll tell you now, please don't ever start a sentence with, well, at your age, because that is never going to end well. If you tell somebody it's because of your advanced age that you're having all these problems, none of us like to be considered old, I think. None of us like the label elderly. We unfortunately lost a very dear aunt recently to cancer, and she was just shy of 88, I think. Others will know better, but I remember talking to her, and I would never have used the word elderly in front of her. I would never have labelled her elderly. And I think it's quite a difficult word, isn't it, to be applied to us. It's the opposite of when kids are growing up and they become teenagers and you say something about, oh, you need to be careful, or you need to ask your parents, or you're not old enough for this or that. And teenagers will go, I'm not a child, I'm an adult, I can make my own decisions. And before you know it, in the blink of an eye, you're an adult, then you're a parent, then your kids have left the nest, then you're finding yourself, like myself and my husband, in our mid-60s, no children, they've all flown the nest, they're adults, and we've got grandchildren that we see from time to time as we're able, or as they're available. Each age and stage, I don't want to be called old right now, at mid-60s, and I'm not sure when or if I'd ever be comfortable with being called elderly. And I don't know who would really, but certainly my uncle, who just turned 89, so I've told him we're having a 90th birthday party next year for him. I would never call him elderly, not in front of him. It's just not a nice word. But age is just a number, and it's very much just a number. And somebody with Parkinson's may be an older 60-year-old with Parkinson's due to lifestyle factors and other variables. They may not do as well or last as long or live as well for as long as they could due to pre-existing conditions alongside their Parkinson's. We are all very much individuals, and if somebody was to ask the question, I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's, how long have I got? What time is left to me? Nobody could give you an answer to that. Nobody could say, oh, you're looking at 10 years or you're looking at 5 years. Who knows what's going to happen along the way? Who knows whether maybe you're going to have a stroke, or maybe you're going to have a heart attack. This is very cheerful, isn't it? Or none of those things happen. You could be living along with your Parkinson's like I've been. My Parkinson's is good. My Parkinson's does not cause me any problems whatsoever. It's very well behaved. It's been termed as a slow burner, so it's not actually causing me any issues. But it's my arthritis and it's my hernia and various other bits and pieces that have struck me down, have caused me to need operations. And my Parkies is so well behaved by comparison, and I've had the arthritis for years, so it's taken years to get to this stage where joints and bits and bobs are starting to wear out. But yeah, with my Parkinson's, it's going really well. And my medications keep things on top. I don't have highs and lows. I just seem to hum along with my medication, doing pretty well. But yeah, it's these, what I would have termed in the hospital as comorbidities, that have actually caused me all the pain and discomfort and inconvenience. Parkies is well behaved, and I'm happy to say that. It depends on your age, your stage, your various factors, any comorbidities or other health issues that you have to deal with. And everybody's different, but I think for all of us, no matter what age or stage we are, or how old we are chronologically, we owe it to ourselves to try to be the best that we can be, to try, in the main, to eat sensibly, to exercise. For me, it's about shedding some weight and trying to be a healthier person in general. Maybe give us the opportunity to be elderly. Maybe if I'm 85 in the future and somebody calls me elderly, I'll go, don't care, I'm still here. And that's the main thing. But yeah, I've never called my uncle, my 89-year-old uncle, elderly in front of him. He might hit me with his walking stick. Yeah, when is old? You're as old as you feel. And I often feel older than my years. And sometimes, on a really good day, I feel younger than my years and can't believe that I'm nearly 64. So just a few thoughts on how we might feel old, why we might feel old, and when we might consider ourselves old. And there's a changing world about us as well. I have twin granddaughters and they're turning 16 this year. And we can't believe that those little skinny rat bags that were born so tiny have grown into these beautiful girls that are turning 16. And of course they're still at school and they're living with their parents. And I think back to my 16-year-old self, and I left home while my parents were overseas actually. They came home, I cleared my bedroom out and I'd moved into a flat with a friend. And I recoil in horror at the thought of my granddaughters doing it now, because I was working full time and I was, I think, more grown up than these 16-year-olds. 16 feels far too young. And I had my first child at 20, and 20 seems far too young. Yeah, it's ages and stages for us, but I sometimes feel it's ages and stages relevant to the time that we're living in. People used to get married younger when I was younger. People used to have children younger when I was younger. I got married at 18, first child at 20, and most people do that much later in life, maybe in their 30s. So there's quite a difference. And I don't know whether having your children young makes you more youthful for longer. But yeah, whatever age it is, depending on the era that you're living in, I think that has an impact on how each age and stage is viewed as well. Whether age is respected, or whether it's something where people want to just put people out of view, that they aren't respected, they aren't valued. And I hope that's not going to be my world in the future, or any of our worlds in the future, that we will be honoured for our contribution, for our value as people, not merely as an elderly person to be pitied or ignored. This has been Sue for Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. Kia kaha. Be strong, be brave, be you.